Man, I can't wait until these types of videos are just not a thing. We're coming up on like 2 months away from a year since the NBA got suspended the first time. But anyway, welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about, is the NBA season in danger? And I'm here to tell you that I don't think that it is. There's a lot of different options here moving forward for the NBA. We're going to talk about all those different possibilities as it relates to the protocols of the NBA, as it relates to changes to the rosters, as it relates to a possible bubble down the road for the NBA as well, because as we all know, they're having some issues right now. We all knew it was going to be a difficult task to get through a full NBA season with everything going on in the world right now. I was confident in their ability to get it done based off how, if you want to use the word successful, that's fine, successful the bubble was, and just the competence level that the league has shown at this point, dealing with all the different situations they've had to deal with over the last 18 months. But it's becoming pretty clear early on in the season that it's going to be difficult to do this in a way that doesn't impact the integrity of the games, right? Because like the 76ers got off to a great start, and now they're playing with like 8 or 9 guys every night because half their team isn't eligible to play. So let's first identify the issue, and then I'll explain to you why I don't really think the season is fully in danger. So the problem is not that half the league is testing positive. Like, that's not the issue. The issue isn't that 100 players in the NBA have tested positive and they can't play. The reason that these games are getting postponed and the reason that these teams are having difficulty putting players on the floor is because there are some positive cases, but because of the way the protocols are set up within the NBA as it relates to contact tracing and otherwise, players that are deemed to be close contact to those other people or players, whether it be staff or otherwise, that have tested positive, they're ineligible to play for like 10 to 14 days. And so what ends up happening is they have one positive test, a couple other guys are deemed close contact, and suddenly half the roster is ineligible to play. And the reason the games are getting postponed, and the only reason the games are getting postponed, is because those teams are under the 8 required players to take the floor. The NBA does not seem like they're going to go away from a model that the NFL adopted, which is they're only going to change the schedule of games. They're only going to have games be impacted by the protocols that have been set out if you are literally unable to play the game because of a roster issue. If your best player, your 3 best players happen to be ineligible to play in a game, but you have 10 guys that can suit up, you're going to play that game. That's the way the NFL treated it. It's strictly from a medical standpoint, and it looks like the NBA is going to go the same way. And that is the issue more than anything else here is game day rolls around, and these teams don't have 8 guys that are eligible. So does that mean that it's going to continue to be an issue throughout the entire season, and we don't know if this is going to be a season that's going to be able to finish? I don't think that's necessarily the case, because I think there's things that the league can do here that can certainly help them. Now, I don't know what the long-term goal is, but in the short term, they can adjust the protocols in ways that it limits that close contact, whether that be pre or post game between different teams. They can limit different shoot-arounds and practice times and things like that. Maybe they practice in multiple groups. I know this is very, very odd from a team standpoint, but if the league is dead set on playing all these games, then they're going to figure out a way to make this happen. And the other thing that I would almost guarantee is going to happen within a week or 2 weeks is they're going to increase the roster limit for these teams. Because again, the problem is they don't have enough guys to take the court, and they've already increased the active roster limit, I believe, to 15 on game day. We could see that number go up to 17, 18, 19, maybe even as high as 20 for every single team in the league, which would, yes, increase the traveling party, increase the expenses for the teams, but it would also increase the likelihood that these teams will at least have enough guys to take the floor, which again is the problem. The only reason that any game has been postponed to this point in the season, I think there's been 4 or 5 of them, is because teams don't have enough guys to take the floor. League rules mandate you got to have at least 8 players eligible to play. And whether it be the games yesterday or the few games earlier in the season that were postponed, that wasn't the case, and that's why the games were postponed. So those are some options there, and like the league seems incredibly motivated to make this happen, to make this work. They seem optimistic that as they get further throughout the season, things will get better, whether it be in the world at large or they'll get better at dealing with this stuff or whatever the case may be. And so right now, they're just trying to keep things as on track as possible, make sure that the schedule stays as close to what they initially said it was going to be as they can. And then hopefully as the year gets later and later, things will get better overall. Now, we have no idea if that's actually going to be the case. I'm pretty confident that if you asked most people last March when the league got suspended what the following year would have looked like, I'm pretty sure most people, whether that be because they're naive or whatever the case may be, wouldn't have anticipated that we'd be here mid-January 2021 still dealing with this and still trying to figure out how we're going to get through a full NBA season. So I think if we learn anything to this point, it's that being pessimistic is probably being realistic throughout this entire thing, right? One other thing I want to address here. The idea of an NBA bubble gets brought up pretty consistently. I believe the G League is doing a bubble down there in Orlando, just like the NBA did before for the playoffs. There is a 0% chance that the league does a regular season bubble. When the playoffs roll around, if they really want to get the playoff games in, I think it's possible that they do something bubble-ish, but it's just logistically and financially impossible for the NBA to do a bubble for an entire regular season. Because just think about the logistics of this. This was an enormously expensive, albeit successful from a health and safety standpoint, venture that they went through to hold the bubble last postseason. I mean, like, you go and look at the numbers. It was ridiculously expensive, right? And like, obviously from the players, the reviews in terms of, what it was like to be living in the bubble for months and months and months was not great either. And I don't think any of them are going to sign up for that again. So that has to be considered. And also the sheer length, the sheer amount of time they'd have to spend in the bubble to play all these regular season games, it's just not doable. So with the exception of maybe the postseason, go ahead and put the idea of a bubble out of your mind. I can almost guarantee you that it's not going to happen at all. And I can guarantee you that it's not going to happen for the regular season. Now, could they go to some kind of regional site situation where they have a site in the east, north, south, and west, and you go there and they put a whole bunch of teams there and you play a whole bunch of games and then you switch sites and you rotate and they do some weird regional stuff? I think that's a possibility. I don't think we're there yet. I think the league is still really committed to finding a way through different protocols, through different cautionary measures, to make sure that they're able to play as many of these regular season games in as normal way as possible, because that 72 game number from a financial standpoint is a really big deal for the NBA. There's a reason that they kind of steamrolled the players into agreeing to such an early start, relative to when last season ended December 22nd, as well as playing all 72 games. I'm not necessarily of the opinion that the sky is falling right now. And I mean, you can make the argument about whether they should even be playing the games or not, whether the NBA should even be operating. I'm not here to make that argument. I'm not here to have that discussion today. But just based off the fact that somehow, this still boggles my mind, somehow the NFL got through an entire regular season without canceling a game. The fact that that happened tells me that the NBA can get this done. Now, yes, there are more games, there's more travel involved, and you don't have the full week to kind of get things figured out. And the NFL certainly did more than their fair share of postponing and all kinds of different stuff. But from the level of competence we've seen in the past of a league's ability to deal with everything that's going on in the world right now, my confidence level with the NFL was much lower than it was with the NBA, and they were still able to make this work. So I think over the next couple of days, over the next week or so, some really smart people within the NBA are going to get together. They're going to figure out, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to go about it. And if that still doesn't work, then maybe we reevaluate our long-term plan from there. But they're not at the point yet, in my opinion, that they're going to start looking at a possible shutdown, a possible suspension, a possible bubble, whatever the case may be. It's going to initially be a tweak to the different protocols, potentially increasing the roster limit so that the minimum 8 players is almost impossible for these teams to not have, right? To not have 8 players to take the floor, and then they go from there. Now, I am being realistic in the fact that it is possible that a scenario exists that it gets so bad that the NBA season just stops, right? We've all seen it, right? I mean, we saw it in March, and obviously it's a completely different world that we lived in March than the one that we live in now. And so I'm understanding that the NBA season could be in danger, but for me personally, they seem so motivated to just keep their head down and keep pushing that I don't really think the season is in danger quite yet. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll see what happens the rest of the way. But that's just where I'm at right now on the NBA season. But that is going to be the end of the first video of today. I thank you all very much for watching. I've got an interesting video coming out later today talking about the Ball family. So if you're interested in whatever's going on with their life, go ahead and check that video out later today. It'll be out a handful of hours from when this one is uploaded, because I upload twice a day, every day, all throughout the NBA season. So if you're looking for a place for consistent NBA content, this is a great place to be. You can go ahead and subscribe, like the video, all that good stuff. And you can check me out at various socials at the bottom of the screen as well. There's a link tree down in the description below. With all those things said, hope you guys all stay safe. Hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.